Hello and welcome to Media Week. Ahead, as Netflix launches in Australia, we'll take you on the inside as James Manning sits down with Chief Content Officer at Netflix, Ted Sarandos. Plus, the latest on BBC's Jeremy Clarkson as the network announces his contract will not be renewed. But first, Netflix has officially launched in the Australian market, adding to the competition amongst subscription video on demand, where Presto and Stan already have a place. James Manning, editor and publisher of Media Week, joins us now for more on this. James, so we've finally had this launch of Netflix. What's it been like? Has it
been on? It's out of the way. Yeah, well, look, it was good to actually get it out, you know, because we've been talking about it for a long time. It's really the market leader. It's, you know, it's the word when everybody talks about, you know, SVOD, subscription video on demand, they're talking about Netflix. We've seen all the Australian startups sort of reacting, wanting to stake out their territory before Netflix launches. So all the main players are now up and running in the market. They've all got the free offers to get you in, to let you trial the content. So very impressive. When Netflix moved in here, you know, they had talent, came over on Sunday, spent some time out on Sydney Harbour, then they took over a floor of a Sydney hotel, did lots of media interviews right across Monday. The executive team flew in on Monday. They did their interviews with, they were just everywhere. They just got out.
And with you, James, because we've actually got that now. Ted Sarandos, Netflix Chief Content Officer, spoke with James Manning, and here's a little bit of what he had to say.
Could I ask, by starting, how important a market is Australia in terms of your global rollout?
Well, we've said we're going to try to be fully global by the end of 2016, but Australia is a very important market. It has been from the beginning. For us, we have focused our international expansion on markets that have had historically very strong internet infrastructure, fast broadband speeds, strong taste for e-commerce and all those things, which were a little slow going at the beginning in Australia, but are coming along beautifully today, and we're excited to be here.
Yeah. When you move into a new market, talk to us a little bit about the effect that has on your content decisions, on your commissioning.
Well, it's different a little bit country to country. English-speaking countries tend to have a stronger preference for English-speaking product, which is helpful in that way. We've been studying the market for a long time, and we were able to take a few shows that were Australian creations and give them a big global footprint already. So things like a children's show, H2O, that we picked up, released in all of our markets around the world, and it's very, very popular. We co-produced the sequel, Mako Mermaids. We have the series Wentworth in the US and Canada. Show Rake in the US and the UK. So a lot of Australian shows that are getting big global footprints already. So what you see emerging is a big global platform for global storytelling. And I think the more countries we're in, the more intimately we can get involved in the production infrastructure and the creative community to help give a global platform to storytellers.
I mean, you've got our actor Ben Mendelsohn's in Blood and Lime, one of your key new properties.
Yes. Yael Stone, as in Orange is the New Black.
Sure. Baz Luhrmann, you've signed a deal with, which is going to, I think, attract a lot of Australians to the service.
I hope so. I hope so.
But would I be right in thinking you'll only ever do things like that if they work globally for you in multi-markets?
No, like I said, we've picked up shows that I think have been historically only popular in Australia and have been giving them a much bigger footprint.
Yeah.
So, like I said, Wentworth is.
But you see legs for them in other markets.
Absolutely.
Though, yeah.
But I think, with the ones we describe, by having, we're not just looking to put Australian talent in our programming. We're looking for great storytelling from around the world. Like Baz Luhrmann is a global storyteller with great Australian roots.
Yes.
Right. So, but I think when people say, you know, will we make shows about from Australian storytellers in Australia? Absolutely.
As you sort of spread around the world, are you seeing many similarities or many differences in terms of what audiences like?
Well, I'm mostly encouraged by the similarities. So I think people are really drawn to great storytelling, and that's very universal. So what the things that people watch are not as different as you'd think. So a lot of the differences in local viewing is more dependent on business models than on human beings' taste. So, like, you know, why things get made has a lot more to do with kind of the traditional gatekeepers country by country, who control what gets on television into movie cinemas or theaters. And when you get down to it, people just want to see great storytelling.
Yeah. Are you surprised by the competition in Australia? I mean, there really wasn't much of an SVOD market here, 18 months, 2 years ago. All of a sudden, you guys have seemed to have helped spurred a lot of interest in people wanting to get a stake in the ground, I guess, by the time you got here.
Yeah, no, we're in over 50 countries, and we have a lot of competition all over the place. I think about them less like competitors and more like all players in the kind of entertainment landscape. And they will be, they will come and go, some of them. But what's been great is that what you just described is, even before we launched here, we were able to kind of help the consumer, right? By driving prices down, by driving up access, the investment in on-demand technology that nobody was making until there was the idea that Netflix was coming. So we spur a lot of competition, and the real winner in all of those is always the consumer, who gets the benefit of all this competition.
The real key to your growth seems to be your original content, the things you make, commission, keep exclusively. Are you surprised that hasn't happened here yet to the existing players?
That they're not also doing it?
Yeah. I mean, like you announced Baz Luhrmann before you were even in this market, which seemed really like a killer decision.
Yeah,
but that really hasn't happened much elsewhere.
I think what's happening for us is the original programming. What's been great about it, even in markets where we don't have our own shows, in some places where we've long before our launches, the shows would get sold off into other markets. So like House of Cards was, as an example, or Orange is the New Black in other parts of the world. What's been great is those shows have acted like a global ambassador for the word Netflix. So sometimes the first time people were introduced to the word Netflix was out of their love for House of Cards or Orange is the New Black, that in many cases they saw on a different platform that didn't even carry our brand. So it says a lot about the power of the internet to carry brands around the world. And I think, the decision to make a House of Cards, in our early days, we said yes to that it took about 18 months for that first, to come out. And, hundreds of, a lot of money. So everyone's not in the position to do that. We were fortunately in the position to take a big swing at a show that was, more than $100 million, 26-hour commitment on something we thought could be a story that would travel around the world. Yeah. But we hedged our bets a little bit by allowing some of those international territories to sell off. So I think if someone wants to get in, they have to get in at a large enough scale to make it interesting.
Talk to us also about the way people engage with Netflix, how they watch the content. I've heard discussions about the size of the audience watching on game consoles, mobile devices, things like that.
Yeah.
But in Australia we have something called the Multi-Screen Report, which comes out quarterly, funded by the existing broadcasters. Now it tracks the growth of multi-screens, but the sort of headline for most of those reports, and there's a new one out tomorrow, seems to always be that the traditional TV in the lounge room is still the key engager for people with video content.
Yeah, a great deal of our viewing around the world is done on large televisions through different devices that are connected to both the internet and a screen. Netflix is built to work on anything with an internet connection and access to a screen. So people will gravitate to that great kind of big screen experience. Now they do fill in the gaps by watching bits of the content on an iPad or a device or a laptop. But the lion's share of the viewing happens on a TV, either through a gaming device or a Apple TV, a Roku, all these different devices that'll get you there.
Now you've got you've got a three-tier pricing structure to start here, starting at $8.99, I think, going through to $14.99 for the ultra-high definition, the 4K. Was it 4 devices?
Four simultaneous streams. So you can be watching simultaneously in 4 different rooms.
Yeah, I mean, you probably don't talk on the exact breakdown of your figures, but does the audience tend to, in new markets, sort of go to the lower price point to start with, and then find out if they need to sort of...
It depends. There's some, the one who's just purely curious, who's just trying out the services. They'll probably go to it's a free 30-day trial, so they really don't identify until they've had the 30 days under their belt to see how they interact with the service and how it's working for them.
We'll bring you more on that interview shortly. But first, let's get a check on the media sector's performance on the share market. This week, we're joined by Evan Lucas from IG. Evan, great to have your company on the show. So we've heard confirmation now that Nick Falloon will be Fairfax's new chairman. What's the reaction like by shareholders?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. It's a fairly fresh story, and this week we haven't seen a huge move by Fairfax, but it also goes into your previous story around Netflix and the fact that he's been brought in from 10. He was the former chair there as well, and it is probably showing that also Fairfax themselves are moving towards that multimedia strategy, that digital content, that online move, and it also backs up why probably Fairfax has actually seen almost a 50-cent rise in their share price since the low halfway through last year. So it is another step in that direction between just being a print media towards that multimedia basis with digital content as the core part of what they're trying to drive in the future.
Yeah, certainly an interesting move. Evan, we'll have to leave it there. Thanks so much, though.
Thanks, Ingrid.
Evan Lucas there from IG. We do have to take a quick break on Media Week. Coming up next, though, the second part of our interview with Netflix Chief Content Officer Ted Sarandos. That's next.